Welcome back to News Talk. Are the New England Patriots the worst known cheaters of all time? And did the NFL engage in a massive cover-up of real evidence? A blockbuster report is shaking the NFL to its core, and we'll get to that in about 6 minutes. But first, the meltdown that may have ended the Nationals' chances of making the postseason. Noah Frank, a sports editor at WTOP.com, joins us now. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. A rough day for local sports fans. Washington squandering a 7-1 lead to New York, losing 8-7, a bullpen meltdown again. We've seen this movie before, and we didn't like it any better the other times.
Yeah, well, it's the fourth one since August 31st, the two in a row in St. Louis, and then the one on Monday. And obviously there's fundamental issues in the bullpen, and guys have to be able to throw strikes. I mean, it's, you know, to walk 6 guys in one game is bad. To walk 6 guys in an inning is almost unheard of. And that 7th inning was a complete meltdown last night.
Nats Nation is in shock, and I think some people think we're past the brink. That while Washington is not mathematically eliminated, a hot run and the Mets stumble, we're right back in it. But what? We were told 48 hours ago that this was playoff baseball. 3 home games against the team you're chasing. 0-2 with surely a must-win situation tonight, and then the prospect of 3 games in New York where the atmosphere is going to be quite intense. So it's back to the wall time, to be sure.
Yeah, I mean, usually over the long haul, if you beat bad teams, you can find a way to the playoffs. That's been a construction that a lot of teams, the sort of small market teams, have gone after, the Rays and the A's. Hey, if we can beat all the bad teams, just split the games against the good teams, you can make it into the playoffs. The problem for the Nats is they've beaten some bad teams, but I think they're 3-17 against winning teams in their last 20 games, including, of course, these really rough losses, the St. Louis losses. And as much as we blame Matt Williams for a lot of the problems, really, he was fine in terms of the 7th inning. He was doing what he could do with what he had. I don't think removing Jordan Zimmerman in that situation was the wrong idea. Daniel Murphy's
because of pitch count.
Daniel Murphy has a 300-plus career average and 4 home runs against Zimmerman. He goes for a lefty-lefty matchup. Yeah, I mean, I don't see that as being a problem. It worked, and he got out of it. I don't see it as being a problem to start Treinen with a 6-run lead in the 7th inning. I don't see it as a problem to go get Felipe Rivero when there's 2 outs and he's got the lefty-lefty matchups coming up. Mm-hmm. Like, that was all fine. He might have hung on to Drew Storen a little long. Right. But the real problem came in the 9th inning when they still had a chance to win the game. The Mets came roaring back, but it was still 7-7, even when they fall down 8-7. They come up in the bottom of the 9th, top of the order, and they have a chance to win the game. Worth singles to lead off. And then he bunts Anthony Rendon, which is a bad idea anyway because Rendon has 4 professional bunts in his entire minor major league career combined. It's not something he does. He's also one of your best hitters. So
he was worried, though, clearly about I'm blanking on the New York pitcher's name, who induces ground balls and the double play, as we later saw.
He does, but here's the unbelievable fault in that logic. As he explained to us in the post-game press conference, that Familia's a ground ball guy, were his words. So let's walk through the situation, which you have to be able to do as a big league manager. A high school manager knows how to walk through the situation. All right, Anthony Rendon bunts. If that works, runner goes to second with 1 out. And then every manager on the face of the earth intentionally walks Bryce Harper. You take the bat out of Bryce. If you succeed, you take the bat out of Bryce Harper's hands.
And you're right back where
and you're in a ground ball situation with the force set up for the guy who's second in the National League and grounded into double plays, Yunel Escobar, who, of course, the situation played out that way anyway, grounds into the game-ending double play. So you're actually strategizing to create the very situation that you're claiming to try to avoid.
If anything, a more robust double play scenario with runners first and second than if you simply have a runner at first.
Right, but the point is, by bunting Rendon, you're not just taking the bat out of his hands as a good hitter. You're taking it out of the probable NL MVP's hands, probably the best hitter in baseball this year in Bryce Harper. You're cutting your own offense off at the knees, and you know, I mean, if you're the Nats, and they've hit extraordinarily well recently, they've scored 4 or more runs in a whole string of games going back, which should be good enough with you know what we expected out of their pitching staff to win. You just can't do that to your team.
Does Washington have what it takes to make this thing close and fun again? I
mean, they have to win today. But it's going to take. The good news is the only winning teams that they play. I mentioned the sort of the winning record, losing record against winning and non-winning teams. The only teams that they play with a winning record the rest of the way are the one game today and the 3 at the end of the season against the Mets. Problem is they can't seem to beat the Mets.
Phone lines open 703-387-1020 as we talk with Noah Frank, sports editor at WTOP.com, talking about the Nats. And we're going to segue here to talk about the new report about the NFL. If you want to talk about either, grab an open line right away, please, 12 before the hour. If you're watching in the 11 o'clock hour, join the conversation. Number on the screen. Can you comment, Noah, on the report from ESPN about not one incident of a guy with a camera operating at the behest of the Patriots prior to a Jets game? We're talking about something much more sinister and long-running.
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on here, and there wasn't just the ESPN report. There's the full SI report too, which came out a couple hours later and kind of got buried. But they had a whole team of reporters doing the exact same thing. And they covered some of the same points, but SI also touched on some things that ESPN didn't cover. Clearly, I mean, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. Bill Belichick is the kind of person who looks for every possible edge to exploit. I thought the most interesting thing that came out of any of that was they talked about how on Saturday meetings, when they go before they walk through before they get ready, he tells his assistant coaches and the staff who was on the flight, the opponent's flight, coming in to play them. How he gets that information, I have no idea. They didn't explain that in the article, but clearly he's figured out some sort of a system to figure out who's actually going to be there, who gets left behind as an injured player. Like he has this whole thing wired to a point where whether things are actually illegal, whether they're just finding advantages around the margins here and there, he's going to play every single one of them. And I don't think that should come as a surprise to anyone who's followed them.
I want to share with you and the folks at home the excerpt from the ESPN piece that jumped off the screen at me and is troubling with a capital P. Inside a room accessible only to Patriots coach Bill Belichick and a few others, NFL investigators found a library of scouting material containing videotapes of opponents' signals with detailed notes matching signals to plays for many teams going back 7 seasons. Among them were handwritten diagrams of the defensive signals of the Pittsburgh Steelers, including the notes used in the January 2002 AFC Championship game won by New England by a touchdown. Yet almost as quickly as the tapes and notes were found, they were destroyed on Commissioner Roger Goodell's orders, league executives stomping the tapes into pieces and shredding the papers inside a Gillette Stadium conference room. If this is true, I've been a Joe average sports fan 40 plus years. I can't think of anything bigger than this. This, I think, shakes the country's #1 sport to the core. This thing is rotten through and through, if true.
Well, I mean, and so obviously this is the biggest thing. This is the worst thing, and clearly the biggest violation of any rule of anything that is
no gray area
reported, right? And it's so funny that we get so hung up on the Spygate stuff on the videotaping, because there's fans videotaping every practice down in Richmond during Redskins training camp. They make the media turn off their cameras, but the fans are still there on their camera phones. This is the real stuff. This is the stuff that they should be concerned about, and the NFL is basically covering it up. I mean, they're literally smashing tapes with their heels in a conference room at Gillette Stadium. So the bigger scandal here is that the NFL is covering up one of its team's crimes that is an actual, tangible, competitive edge, more so than the fact that this has been, there's been all these little things.
What happens as a result? How did Roger Goodell's other bosses? I mean, he's tight with Kraft. Kraft is one guy.
Well, and then, I mean, and this all comes back now, of course, to Deflategate, which is why this all came up in the first place. This overreaction to something that is so nothing. And it turns out, well, essentially he's overreacting like an official would on the field, calling a holding call because he missed it the last time. And you just can't do that in real life. That doesn't work outside of a football field. That's not how the justice system works. And he's gotten himself in all this trouble now because the NFL 5 times under Goodell since the Bountygate scandal with the Saints has been taken outside of its own jurisdiction to federal courts, to judges, to other arbiters. And 5 times they've lost.
How did the other, in only 30 seconds that I've left, how do the other owners react? Could this possibly blow over?
I think that they were probably actually happy to see the Patriots getting getting some sort of justice in their minds, for, make up justice for Deflategate. But the fact that it failed, the fact that it went to a federal court and got undermined, and the whole thing got thrown out, and they didn't just take a settlement. I think it does undermine Goodell in the long run, because now Kraft, who was one of his biggest allies, is no longer supporting him.
Noah Frank at WTOP.com. Lots going on in the sports world. Thanks so much for your time this time.
Thanks, Ken.
Back with the program note after this.